Hi. I was walking the other day, and as I was walking, I came across a fence, and on the fence I saw a couple little items that people had dropped when they were walking. One was a glove and the other one was a boot. And I guess someone had seen these glove and a boot lying on the ground, and they decided that they'd put them on top of the fence posts so that whoever was walking that trail that had lost those items, because they were in an unusual place, people might tend to notice them and be able to pick up their item and continue on their walk. And it got me to thinking about our recent trip that we had taken. We were in Thailand and we were going up to these great falls. And the falls had a trail that was kind of up, and it was very rocky and it had a lot of roots. And it was very precarious to walk in some of those areas. When we were going on this walk, we saw a big sign that warned us about these fierce monkeys that could be found on this trail. And they were advising you to watch out for the fierce monkeys, not to feed them, and to just be cognizant about them. So as we were walking up this trail, what we found is we were just watching where we were stepping. We weren't really looking at our surroundings. We were just really focusing on getting up the trail and getting there in one piece. When all of a sudden some debris fell from the top of a tree and caused us to stop and look up. And what should we see when we look up but these fierce monkeys? There was a whole family of monkeys, and several in the trees all around us, but we hadn't noticed because we were so focused on looking at the trail to see where we were walking. And it made me realize sometimes that's like our life, isn't it, as Christians? Or we get so focused on the trail that we're on that we fail to realize what's going on around us. Maybe the trail that we're on is our work, or some task at hand, or maybe it's a ministry that we're involved in, and we put all our energy and all our focus on this particular task, and we fail to see what's actually going on all around us. Maybe where God wants us to partner with Him in doing something ministry-wise that may be not exactly the task that we're doing. And I feel like sometimes that can be a bit of a preoccupation with us. And a part of what had happened for me personally was when we were on this trip, just prior to going, and the apostle told me that I should be on the lookout, that God had told her about an assignment that He had for me while I was going to be in Thailand or in Vietnam. And it was about a Samaritan woman, and that there was going to be an opportunity for me to minister this way. And so I was trying to be really aware of what could happen. I had opportunity to share and witness to people along our trip, but I never had that encounter that I could acknowledge that this was the encounter that God had set aside for me. And unfortunately, when it came, I missed it because I was looking down at the trail and not looking to see what God was doing around me. It happened when I entered into a lobby, and I was with my daughter, and I was on the computer, and I was busy doing things, preparing for the next place that we were going to go to. And this woman came into the lobby, and I kind of saw her in my vision, but my focus was doing what I was doing at the time, and I didn't really look at her. I didn't really give her time, and I wasn't aware of my surroundings. As it turned out, she was crying, and another woman that was there ended up ministering to her, and the most that I could do was bring tissues for her tears. And it really made me sad, and I asked God's forgiveness because I had actually known about this beforehand, and I'd missed it because I was so busy being focused on what I was focused on that I didn't recognize what was going on around me and the opportunity that God wanted for me to partner with Him there. It was really sad, and I thought to myself, it just made it more real to me sometimes, is that the Bible tells us that we're to be in the world, but not of the world. And sometimes we get so caught about being in the world that we fail to realize that God is working around us all the time. And it also goes in line with this other quote that I just read the other day, and it was talking about it's not what we say we believe, it's how we behave. Because sometimes what we believe and how we behave don't always present themselves the same way. It made me think back to when I used to work at the bank, and when I worked at the bank, sometimes people would come in and maybe they wouldn't be altogether, they're maybe upset by what's going on, and you're trying to resolve what the problem is, but not always to their satisfaction. And when that happens, sometimes you can allow your flesh and just who you are, your personality to shine in that moment instead of Jesus. And you might come across, if they're coming aggressively at you, you might actually come back with aggression yourself. But that's not how God wants us to act. He wants us to be Christ-like in everything that we do. And it really made a heightened thing for me because at that time I was a worship leader at church. And my concern was sometimes is I could be leading worship at one moment and I could see someone walk in that I had maybe had an encounter with at the bank, and I'd have to think to myself, how did I respond to them when maybe it wasn't a good situation that brought them into connection with me at that point? Maybe they were upset, but how did I respond to them? Did I respond to them in a Christ-like manner, even if maybe I wasn't able to give them what they wanted at that time? And you realize that really our life always comes down to that place of being a Christian all the time and letting our behavior, what we say we believe, make itself very real in how we respond. We're all going to come across people that are perhaps frustrating or that are challenging to us, and maybe people that are struggling or need ministry too. And so we really have to be sensitive to God so that we're not so focused on the situation that we don't fail to realize the opportunity that we have with the people that God brings into our path. 1 Corinthians talks a lot about love, and in chapter 12 it speaks of the many parts of the body and our connection to each other. But verse 31 brings this message to a conclusion by saying, "But earnestly desire and zealously cultivate the greatest and best gifts and graces, and yet I will show you a still more excellent way, one that is better by far and the highest of them all, love." Chapter 13 is one that we're all familiar with, and it talks about, it's called the love chapter, really. It's all about love, and often people use it in their weddings. And it describes this amazing love that God desires for us to have for each other and to have for Him. And sometimes, we can zip through that whole love chapter, and maybe we just think that, it's lovely, it's beautiful, and it describes this perfect love. But to realize that really God wants us to embody that love for one another. And I find it particularly more harder way to go through that chapter by even throwing your name in front of the love part. So instead of saying that love endures long and is patient and kind, love is never anxious nor boils over with jealousy, is not boastful or vainglorious, and does not display itself haughtily. If I were to say Madeline endures long and is patient and kind, Madeline never is envious nor boils over with jealousy. Madeline is not boastful or vainglorious and does not display herself haughtily. And do that for the entire chapter. What you kind of find sometimes is to recognize that there's a gap in between who I am, how I respond to people, and how God wants us to respond to people. And we're not going to be able to make that change on our own. It's only by the grace of God, and He's so helpful to us to be able to help us to move towards being more Christ-like in everything that we do. And we really need to recognize that we have to die to self to be able to allow God to bloom within us, that we will be able to be love and treat others and behave in a way that does not deny what we say we believe. I guess the challenge for me personally is to ensure that my love walk is maturing, that I could look back a year from now and see that God has brought me along closer to the mark that I want to be at, versus staying comfortable in a state of not even making an attempt to work with Him and allow my flesh to be crucified, that I will become more and more Christ-like in everything that I do. I don't want to get so focused, though, on life and ministry opportunities that I fail to see that there's ministry all around me daily, and the opportunities that God wants me to partner with Him in, even though it may be just another ordinary day. You see, God wants to make our ordinary day extraordinary if we will only look up from the path and allow Him to minister through us to those that we come in contact with, that we will be able to be love to others and be able to be available for a vessel for Him to work through. I hope this is something that will challenge you and will help you as you go in your walk and try to be more what Christ is to the world around us. Thank you.